Paula Droege, and this is my search for a material soul. Darth Vader from Star Wars is the perfect picture of evil. Sleek, impenetrable mask, flowing black cape and jackboots, deep, seething voice. The films portray him as both tempted and temptor to the dark side. Anakin Skywalker is manipulated by Emperor Palpatine to kill a rival. But the full transformation to Darth Vader occurs when rage and hatred consume Anakin and he is driven by a lust for power. The good son, Luke Skywalker, has tousled blonde hair, blue eyes, and sustainable organic clothing. Though young and unsteady, he defends justice by relying on his friends and the Force. I love this battle of good against evil, the way good always wins and has the most fun. Even when things look bleak, the underdog will triumph by means of pluck, determination, and the power of good over evil. One of the ways these stories inspire is by externalizing good and evil into things that people can sense. You can see and feel them. On the good side, feeling the Force is empowering. You connect to something bigger and more powerful than yourself. That feeling of transcendence is one of the most tangible and life-altering aspects of spirituality. According to psychology researcher Dacher Keltner, a feeling of awe gives us that sense of connection beyond ourselves and can be found in nature, social interactions, and witnessing moral courage. When we watch Luke risk his life to destroy the Death Star, it's not just the music that lifts our spirits and makes us cheer. The problem, as always, is evil. If evil is a thing that you can either accept or reject, then it is fundamentally disconnected from who you are. Anakin is basically a good guy. He just got tricked into Palpatine's schemes. The devil made me do it. This goes back to the previous video on free will. I can't be blamed for evil if I'm coerced. And who's better at coercion than the devil? Feminists have long criticized the tradition of blaming Eve for eating the apple and damning humanity. After all, Eve was tricked by Satan. What's Adam's excuse? Rather than read this as a story of original sin and how we're all very, very bad and women are super bad, it's worth remembering that the forbidden fruit came from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Even Adam didn't know good and evil before eating the fruit, because everything in paradise is good. Obviously, not everything in our world is good. We certainly know good and evil, at least when embodied by Darth Vader and Luke Skywalker. In general, it's much easier to identify evil in others than in ourselves. Oh, sure, I'm my own worst critic and could enumerate a laundry list of my own faults. But I'm basically a good guy. I just make mistakes now and then. Evil is out there, someone else, someplace else, not me. This sort of thinking justifies the most horrific forms of violence. If some other is evil, then they deserve to be beaten, imprisoned, tortured, killed. The logic seems to be that anything that opposes or combats evil must be good. It's lousy logic, made worse by the opening it allows for cruelty. The truth is that the evil is never the other. It's always us. Only humans are capable of evil, because only humans understand that our actions can harm others. Remember the elements of free will: options, self-reflection, reasons, authenticity. Other animals may have options and the capacity to choose actions authentic to themselves, but they do not reflect on their actions or supply reasons for them. There's just no evidence that any animals other than humans have the cognitive capacity for introspective reasoning. There is evidence that animals help and harm one another in ways that look like good and evil. Bonobos comfort one another in distress. Cats play with wounded mice as a form of entertainment. These behaviors show the evolutionary value of social support on the one hand and development of violent skills on the other. In neither case, however, have the animals self-reflectively chosen an action with the intended reason to give care or cause harm. Evil is us, as the brilliant horror social critique film Us depicts. We are all capable of evil and good, and it's difficult to know which action is right in any given situation. The context in which we find ourselves, like the underground twins in Us, may conscribe our actions so narrowly that it's difficult to even imagine another way to act. The point is to try to imagine, to take time to reflect on our reasons for our actions and whether they are truly doing good. As a person of German ancestry who regularly travels to Germany, I often try to imagine how Germans failed to recognize the evil of the Holocaust. I suppose their situation was not so very different from the way we Americans fail to recognize the evil of mass deportation, and the way Israelis fail to recognize the starvation in Gaza. The story always told is that the people being killed are evil, that the government is protecting us. We know this is a story to justify cruelty, or we should know, but we don't want to know because that would mean that we really are the evil ones. Seeing evil comes in many forms. No one is pure, even the victims of cruelty. In the New York Times Magazine article, Taffy Brodesser-Akner wrestles with the legacy of the Holocaust from the perspective of the few remaining survivors and the generations that have inherited their legacy. She focuses on the survival of a friend's father, Jehuda Lindenblatt, and her own reluctance to write about his traumatic experiences. She's overwhelmed by the suffering, degradation, and desperation the survivors endured, and wonders how they can go on living, knowing what people are able to do to one another. Brodesser-Akner then wonders how she can go on living with the knowledge of what was done to her people, her family, her friend's family, the 6 million Jews exterminated by the Nazis, and the anti-Semitism that continues to attack her sons, New York synagogues, the Pennsylvania governor. Is it wrong to want to live a life that's not haunted by the Holocaust? When we realize that we cannot ever understand the depths of physical, emotional, and moral pain inflicted, are we obligated to tell the stories anyway? If the stories told by the survivors who lived them have not been enough to end systemic violence, what hope is there that any story or policy or strategy will succeed? Is it wrong to give up? Another story in the New York Times Magazine helped me answer that question, at least well enough to finish telling this particular story. David Marchese interviewed poet and novelist Ocean Vuong, who tells stories about kindness and cruelty. Vuong expresses compassion for people in a world where rage is the only form of control they have over their lives. As he says, suffering has always been the doorway to violence. Suffering has always been the doorway to violence. A more perplexing response to suffering is kindness. Even without hope for release from their own pain, Vuong has seen the way people do what they can to help others. Kindness and goodness are inherent human qualities, along with evil. Good and evil are not things outside us, angels and demons in a tug of war for our souls. Good and evil are ways humans act toward one another, ways we respond to suffering and joy that uplift or degrade. We all have the ability to become kinder or more cruel. The first step is to decide which you prefer. It might seem obvious that everyone would choose to be more kind, but I don't think that is at all obvious. When the US president describes war heroes as suckers and political opponents as vermin, it's clear that cruelty has become a fashionable choice. If you are watching this podcast, you probably don't share those values. They nonetheless are values that some choose, either deliberately or by deluding themselves into thinking that cruelty is necessary for one reason or another. Until we face the fact that we are the ones who choose evil, we have no hope of choosing otherwise. If you do choose to be more kind, remember that it's a skill rather than a natural endowment. While it's true that some people are naturally kinder and others are naturally more mean, these tendencies are not fixed. Everyone is capable of murder, and the meanest person can be touched by tenderness. You are what you do because your actions create the memories that constitute yourself. So do good in order to become good, but not because you think an act is good. That's just rule following. A good action is one that feels good, that makes you feel good in doing it, and critically, makes others feel good. We are material beings, which means that good and evil are tangible. Help and harm are real consequences to real people and animals and the environment in a real world. I was thinking about evil last week when we were on vacation at the beach. One morning, I noticed that someone had smashed an elaborate sandcastle my husband had made the previous day. I wanted to write a sign that said, "What sort of person finds joy in destroying the creation of another?" But the beach is not a great place for moralizing. It is a great place for reflecting on the sort of person you are. Are you a builder or a destroyer? What kind or cruel thing have you done lately?